as Moscow was playing host to business leaders, economists, and politicians today, including the Prime Minister, Vladimir Putin himself. Bloomberg's Ryan Chilcote is in Moscow. Ryan.
Yeah, we have a very special guest with us right now, the deputy head of the Russian Central Bank, Mr. Ulyukayev. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
You're welcome.
I know it took us a while to get to this point. Our apologies. I want to ask you about what the central bank can do now to help the Russian economy, to help, I guess, what is revive lending in this country, because everything was going swimmingly, wasn't it, for the Russian economy up until this summer, and then we hit this speed bump. Growth has slowed down a little bit. Inflation has picked up. Have you exhausted your toolkit for reviving lending here?
Okay. First, I think we have done a lot to support lending. I mean, we cut down our policy rate during a year and 2 months.
Sure.
And now we have the lowest rate. And the room between deposit rate and repo rate is 2.5 to 5. This is quite comfortable for Russian banks. Second, they began to lend beginning from March. And now we have 6% increase of their lending since the beginning of the year. Not too much, not too fast, but it's more or less in accordance with the general environment. Third, we support them with the liquidity side. I mean our finance operation, if they need. But now they are, very full of liquidity, so they can lend without that additional support also. And of course, as you mentioned, we shall have in mind the inflation. Up to now, we are not very much concerned because this is the supply side shock. But generally, we watch very carefully inflation.
I want to ask you about quantitative easing. It's something that's been employed in the United States, in Europe, in the UK, quite extensively, even today, in the Bank of Japan announcing new measures, a $60 billion a fund in Japan. Is the central bank considering working together with, say, the finance ministry? The Russian government's going to be issuing an awful lot of debt in this country to cover its budget deficit. Would the central bank be interested in perhaps underpinning that market for Russian debt by buying Russian debt?
Not necessary, because we think that there's still not too much risk appetite in the investors, so they'll be happy to buy public debt without our participation.
We only got about 30 seconds, sir. I want to ask you about the Russian ruble. It's one of the weakest currencies in the world right now versus the dollar. What's the reason for that? And is that actually maybe perhaps in Russia's interest? We have all this talk about currency wars. Brazil saying we're in a currency war. Maybe it's good to have a weak Russian ruble, no?
Of course, we do not participate in any kinds of currency wars.
You're moving away from managing.
We do not believe that will support our economy. And so this weakness during the last 2-3 weeks, this is a local wave. We do not think that this more or less has fundamental reasons for it. So our balance of payment is in good shape, and generally there's no reasons for additional weaknesses.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. That was Alexei Ulyukayev, deputy head of the Russian Central Bank. Very rare interview, giving us some insight into monetary macroeconomic policy here in this country.